All right, all right, all right. All right. Welcome to DTM TV Enyanya. And this is Elijah Meru broadcasting from the city of Tawas in Denmark. And today we have this sad but interesting subject that I'll be discussing with my guest today. And without taking so much time, how are you, my brother?
Hello,
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm okay, thank you. And
Okay.
how is everyone over there?
We are very fine, thank you. And
All
we're
right,
very
all
fine.
right. So I wanted us to discuss about this issue making headlines on social media concerning this Chinese man who was made a chief in Ghana, and I was very much interested in knowing much more. And you being my brother from another mother, but who happens to come from that area, I thought
Yes,
you could inform us more because I think so many Africans are very much concerned with what happened and they want to know more. So, would you, before that, give us a little bit history of what is happening in Ghana now?
yes, actually, it's true what you are talking about. Yes, there's a chief, a Chinese, who has been installed as a chief in of it's called a developmental chief, so to speak.
Mm,
Yes, and these kind of titles are given to although people who might not come from that very community but has
mm-hmm,
contributed significantly to the development of that community.
mm,
So yes, but normally often than not it is their own people who are given to, like myself, my part of the where I come from in that part of the country. We hardly give developmental chiefs to foreigners, or I mean not foreigners but Ghanaians from different area or a different tribe, because mostly it is given to people who knows of the dynamics of that group. Developmental issues in our concept is not only about infrastructure, about projects, visible projects, but there are people in the communities who are giving a whole lot of themselves to the community in the form of education, in the form of um, clubs, putting boys and girls in associations, whereby giving them good moral teachings, and a whole lot of people who are making sure the community is clean. And so, the developmental chiefs is a title which is bestowed on people who are making significant changes to the people of that community. But so it was such a shock to me when I also saw that in the news online from Ghana, and also listened to some radio stations talking about broadcasting that news. So honestly, a whole lot of people of us in the diaspora, they got very shocked at the hearing of this news from the beginning.
because the question is why Africans don't learn from the history. because we have had history. This is how the British, the European, this is how they invented the continent. Do these our chiefs really learn from history? Because it seems like it's the trend that the continent is taking now, like they're replacing the European by the Chinese. And again, some people have argued like the chiefs are the people who sold even their own people to be slaves, to be sold as slaves in the Americas and other places. So the question is, why don't we learn from history?
That is such a good question, but the problem we have is that in Ghana, it is mostly those of us who are from the coastal areas and those who have also specifically taken courses in the area of in the areas which has to do with slave trade and also African studies and what have you, that have a little bit of knowledge or information as to what has transpired in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was this educational system which was created just to take us out of our history. And
Mm-hmm.
so most of our people don't have any knowledge whatsoever of what the history and the background of our country, especially when the dealings of these Westerners and the Chinese and the Arabs and what have you. So many of them don't have a slightest idea of what has happened in the past.
But this is strange
So
because when I see African American and other African from the diaspora traveling to Ghana, and especially the year 2019, where President Nana Akufo-Addo declared that year to be the year of return. There are so many returnees who came to Ghana. Many are doing so many things, and there is this castle where there are so many sites in Ghana, I'm told,
yes,
where the slaves were kept, and it was a gateway for slaves to be sold in the transatlantic ocean.
yes, yes.
Yeah, trade. Yeah. So the question is, how comes you people in Ghana and the traditional leader who are supposed to be the custodians of our traditions and our history, how
Yes.
comes they are not aware of this?
That is the question. Yes. Because these people, when they do anything, I mean, these white people or the Europeans or whatever, whenever they perpetuate any crimes, they want to cover their back.
It up. Mm-hmm.
And how do they do it? They make sure that the generations coming are taken out of that history, are taken
Mm-hmm.
away from any evidences that will let them think and ask questions. In our
Mm-hmm.
case, in our case, we have the visible structures like these dungeons, where which they call the castles, is the slave dungeons. We have them around, but most of the time, how were they? We have been taken out of that history because a history is only strong when it is taught to the generations behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but in our case, these histories have been totally eliminated from our system. It is people who make
Does
conscious
that
effort
that
through our education system. So people like me, people like those of us who comes from the south of Ghana and also
Mhm.
along the coast, who come from the south and mainly from the coastal belt, who have
Mhm.
where those transatlantic slave trade were at the shores of the sea, or were at their doorstep. They are the people who can see evidently that there are some things like these dungeons and these forts and these places where the trade was going on there, and even them and even us, because me growing up in Ghana, in school there was no history talking about what had transpired in the past with regards to trade in human slave trade.
Does
So,
that mean then we are so
so
naive? Because how
of
don't
course,
we learn
so
from history? How
no,
can something that happens yesterday and some of these new colonialism tactics are still alive with us today? The wounds of this colonialism and slavery are still alive with us, but we don't seem to learn from the past, do we?
no, we don't, because who are those teaching us about the past? There are
Mm,
none. Those who were supposed to teach us at the past have already been bought.
mm.
Those who Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown by these Western powers' involvement because he was making the African become conscious of his past, and therefore
Yeah.
he needed to be taken away so that they can put a puppet in place who will just go ahead and then work for them. And that is what happened. Exactly after Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, a whole lot of this African unity and all this stuff just got shattered.
Yeah,
So,
because that's what is shocking people. If it was another country, we would accept. But Ghana, Ghana,
yes,
for heaven's sake, Ghana is the big brother in Africa. Ghana, the country of Kwame Nkrumah, we could expect less things like this happening in Ghana. Now the question is, talking about the president, then the question becomes, isn't there anything that the current president can do to salvage the situation?
there is little he can do, because in Ghana we have this chieftaincy institution which is very strong, and because this chieftaincy institution has been there for hundreds of years before democracy.
Mm.
So they have been the ones who are closer to the people, and whatever they say, the people follow. So it is always a very big headache for this democratic governance system, for them to be able to do certain things which pleases the majority of the people. But anytime it goes against the chieftaincy, then it becomes a little bit of an issue. So anything like this, because this issue that we are talking about is nothing, it's nothing that this government, this president or those in government know of, because the chiefs do things by themselves, and then sometimes when the country gets to know, before we get to know of it, then it has almost, it is almost getting to the tail end of the whole situation, because this is a situation where the so-called Chinaman has been in that part of the country for quite some time now. We
Yeah,
don't
because
know
I
what.
don't think we gave you can give a brief story about the guy. We just perhaps there is somebody who have not heard anything about him. Could you briefly tell us what happened before we continue, please, if you don't mind?
Yes, this part of the country uh, called this place called Abetifi. It's in
Mm-hmm.
the eastern part of Ghana. Yeah, in the hilly area where it is very fertile in timber, in
Mm-hmm.
tree, yes, in timber and agro products. And
Mm-hmm.
most of these people who they come to Ghana, they go to the hinterland where these mineral resources are located. So according to some few checks, this man has been there. I don't know if he has a company operating in the mining, in the timber area. But the chief there is also a timber merchant, and this chief is a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
So him is shortchanging his people for his business interest, because
Okay.
This Chinaman is his partner, and
Oh.
but the people on the ground doesn't have so much to show for as to what this man has contributed to the society for the past
Mm-hmm.
time that he has been there. There are many journalists and radio stations who have been trying to get hold of this chief to have a conversation with as to what criteria did that Chinaman attained for him to be able to installed as a chief. But this chief himself has declined to talk to the media and anybody who wants to have a chat with him to know what really transpired over there. So
Mm-hmm.
there's little that is known of so far, because
Now, now that you're talking about the presidents, like they can't do so much because they are afraid of losing their votes from that part of the world. So some people then would argue, like countries like there are some countries in Africa, which I want to mention, which really did away with all these chiefs. And I was one of the people who thought like these people are the custodians of our traditions and stuff, and I thought perhaps if we still had them, perhaps our countries could have been going into the right direction. But this trend, which I am trying, this is the next question I'm asking, is this a new trend on the continent, like we're replacing the former slaves and masters, the former colonizer with new ones, or what do you think it is? Because we
yeah,
just
this
saw
is
just to add up on the question to clarify it, what happened
yes,
in Zambia? In Zambia, if you
yes,
can recall, there was this mayor of the city of Lusaka who went and rebuked a Chinese man who was
but
mistreating his own people,
yes,
and then
yes,
the next day he was made to go and
apologize,
apologize.
apologize, yes, of course,
So
yes.
the question is, if now it was in Zambia, today is in Ghana, who knows? Perhaps tomorrow it will be in Kenya, in South Africa, and the continent will be recolonized. Is it a new trend? That's my question.
Yes, yes, that is how we can say it's a new trend. But the only thing is that this is just one in a thousand situation, because in Ghana we have different kingdoms, different chieftaincy institutions in different kingdoms, I should say. So this one, it is just one in yeah. But the whole thing is that it takes the ordinary man to be able to know and to help in rescuing this situation before it gets out of hand. Because
Talking,
now the
talking about the ordinary man, we have the youth on the continent who are alive today, who are
yes,
reacting, who are doing everything they can to make
yes,
sure that we don't fall into the same mistakes that our forefather fell in. And you can remember Malema in South Africa saying, "We are not our grandparents. You know, we are a
no,
new generation." So the
breed,
question
a new
is,
generation.
what can the youth today do to stop this nonsense?
Yes. So the youth today needs education. This is what we are doing now. The
Mm.
youth today needs to be told that this is the same strategy which was mounted against our forefathers, and they never saw through what they really meant when they were coming. And this is the same approach that it is now being used, and therefore we should be wide open. We should be eyed open and to know and to see through the real agenda. It is not for our interest. It is for their own selfish gains. That is why they are coming.
Mhm.
Yes, and therefore we have perpetrators amongst us whom they are going to fish out and then use to our detriment. Just like this chief who has been used now. These were the same people who were used. Some of these people like this were used back then. And even when we attained independence, we still had people who were perpetrators, who were traders amongst us, who were used against people like Kwame Nkrumah. So
Mm.
these traders will have always been with us. They will always be with us, and they will surely be amongst us. And therefore, we need to always try to look out for them and then be able to find a way of dealing with them drastically by ourselves because the
Because
institutions,
that's why I have
the
a question. You said these are the people in power. That you're talking of our politicians, they're doing the same. Talk about our legislators, sometimes some presidents on the continent, and now our traditional chiefs, and as you're saying rightly, in Ghana they have so much power. Now these are powerful people. How do we handle this as just a common citizen who are just concerned about our future, the future of of our next generation, while those who are in power, those who are supposed to protect us, are the people who are selling us? Aren't we going to fall into the same trap and find ourselves in new slaves again? Slaves for again, as it happened some few years back.
yes, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it is definitely going on the same tangent. But what
How do
if
we
you,
stop these people in power? That's my question. How do we stop
yes, because
these kings, these chiefs, sometimes these politicians that we've given so much power and then they misuse it? And an
yes,
African problem we have sometimes is that we respect the elders, which is right. But then if the elders now are taking the wrong path, how do we change the narratives? Even when we have made so much noise and they're not wanting to listen to what we have to say. What do you
yeah,
say about that?
yes. There was this situation where when this new government came into power, the Chinaman had been into the country without any permit and has gone to the mining areas to be doing surface mining where they
Mm-hmm.
are spoiling, they are polluting all the water bodies in Ghana. So
Mm-hmm.
when this government came, it waged a war
The
against
current government,
the
you
current
say.
government. There was a
Mm-hmm.
big war which it was waged against mining and surface
Mm-hmm.
mining and what we have a one which is very much unaccepted and very much illegal, which they use the water bodies to wash those sand soil where and then they throw all these chemicals that they use for washing this soil back into the streams, into the water. So the government waged a big war on these people. And then many Chinese, if you are to go online and just search for it, you will find a lot of Chinamen were arrested and deported, and some were even sent into jails and so forth. So they were all taken out of the country just in the first 2 years of the government. So the whole country were all those people who were even doing small scale, legal small scale mining with who had the requisite documentation. I mean, Ghanaians, they were all stopped. And it was only, and they had to undergo training for, it took about 2 years or so. It was just only last year where they were given permits to start mining. And this is only the local people, not anybody, not foreigners.
Mm.
Foreigners are supposed to come into big mining. They can come into the big industrial mining, but not those for locals. And these China people, when they come, they go in there and then buy the concessions that the government has allocated to the local people to mine, and then they
Mhm.
resell them to the Chinaman, and then the Chinaman, because of some peanuts that they get from them. So you see, why do they do that? Because the people don't know of
Mm.
why they are there and what they seek to achieve. So
Mhm.
it is now that after this issue that came about, that many people are becoming, because honestly speaking, Ghana in the news seem like a very much uh, awoken lion, but Ghana, as we know of, is majority of us are still in the slumber. We are still asleep.
We are sleeping
Yes,
giants.
of
Yeah.
of course. Yes, we are very
Mm.
much sleeping giant, because and that it was very much orchestrated. That
I
was
think
very
you can see this picture on the screen, right? So there are two
yes,
Chinese men here. Which one of the two was crowned? The one with which the
yes.
one down or the one
The
up? I would ask.
yes, the one on the neck, and he is the same one in the glasses
Ah, he's the same
with the
person.
cloth. Is the
Okay,
same
I
person.
see.
Yes,
Ah, he's the same one here sitting together with the chief who crowned
yes,
him, and
yes,
there are people carrying him. You
yes,
see, would
yes.
would the Chinese person treat an African like this in China?
Oh, not even in 100 years. It
How do
will
you do
never,
this? On
never, ever happen. It will never occur in our lifetime.
is this still our problem of inferiority complex, or
Yes,
how do
yes,
you do
yes,
this for heaven's
yes.
sake? Eh?
Of course, because you see, there are so many. We have a very long way to go. It is going to be a very tough and a long journey, but we'll get there. But it is such a long journey, because I'm not sure that in our lifetime we will see the results, the needed results that we need. But at least it is good we take the steps now, so that
Yeah,
people coming behind will find it necessary to follow that path that we've taken. Because those, like the French did, they would take a few people, go and train them, make them feel comfortable, and think as if they are French, so that they will
yeah,
be able to use them. This is one problem we have in this chieftaincy institution that we have in Ghana. Most of these chiefs comes from royalties, and their families were the ones go controlling the minerals. So this during the this colonial era, the colonial masters were working hand in hand with those chieftaincy, so they were getting close contact with them, and therefore they took most of their children out of the country. So
mm.
when you go to Ghana now, you will have a chief in Ghana who can't even speak his own dialect very well, because he was taken out of the country when he was a child.
And when he sees how black people are being treated outside here, but when they come back home, they make again the same people to carry people who are mistreating them. Because here, to be honest, whether you are a prince or a king in Africa, when you are here, you're just a black person. The
Yes,
treatment is the same,
the
you
same.
know. Yeah,
Yes,
so that's what I don't understand. How,
yes.
and
So
today there is the media, there is the social media, the information is everywhere. But
no, no, no,
is
no.
did anybody
There's
cast us as a religious people
that
would say? We must do away with this. This is so humiliating, isn't
the
it?
the information that is out there is not common, although it's common, but it's never common to the common people. on the ground. Yes,
That's so philosophic. It's so common,
yes,
but not common to the common people. Uh-huh.
on the ground.
What do you
No,
mean
no,
by
no.
that? Just speak English. Speak simple English. I think I understand you, but
Yes,
for the purpose of our viewers, what do
because
you mean by that?
how do the common person access information? He can't read.
Hmm.
He can't operate these gadgets that we are getting the information on, because as of now, Ghana is 30 million in population, but there are more than 60 million phones being used in Ghana now. But do you know the people who are using them? Just the educated elite who are using them. The common person,
Ghana is 30 million people, but they're
yes,
using 60 million gadgets.
yes,
Does
60
it
million.
mean
I mean
every Ghanaian has
only only telephone. That is
telephones,
if that
mobile
is
phones?
if Yes, just mobile phone. That is
So
even
that's
to
assuming like every Ghanaian has two mobile phones, right?
yes, because you know what? Every all these we have about four different telecommunication uh, companies,
Companies.
and yes, and it is estimated that averagely every Ghanaian has is a subscriber to two of these companies,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
therefore you need to have a phone for this and a phone for that.
Okay. Okay. I see.
Yes,
I
yes,
see.
and yes. So my so the average
So with this
Ghanaian,
availability of all these gadgets, how comes the people still don't access information? Because even those who we are claiming went to school, instead of being educated, we have been miseducated.
hated,
Because
yes,
if a lion who is hunting a leopard is the one again to write a history of the same
of the
leopard, yeah,
yes, would
how do you
you
think if they will write it? Eh?
yes, yes, he wouldn't. No, it will just write anything that suits him.
Mm,
So that is the
mm,
whole problem we have there and there. So it
I
is
see.
up until now that this government in power is trying to, because as soon as he came into power, he introduced this free secondary education where all
Mhm.
kids of school going all kids who complete the junior secondary education get the opportunity to continue into the senior secondary education. And then but this system was there, but only for a very minute population of the since the days of Kwame Nkrumah.
Mm.
This system of certain portion of the country enjoying free education was only for the few minute people who are on the top of the country, the northern section of the country.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it is now that this government has been able to extend it nationwide. So currently we have about 1.2 million peoples being able to transform from junior secondary into the senior secondary education. Yes,
Hmm.
this is one of the you see this government in power now has some similarities to that of Kwame Nkrumah, although
Mm.
they belong to a different sect of uh, political ideologies.
Mm.
Yes, but
Mm. They
they
were not
share
from the same political party, are they?
no, but they have the same ideology. Close,
Okay.
they have so many similarities. And
Hmm.
what I see now is that these same traders who betrayed Kwame Nkrumah at that time, is most of them are also trying to undermine and betray this current government, because
Hmm.
taking the case of this chieftaincy issue, why would you do such a thing at this time when you know that this government is trying to bring home all our lost brothers and sisters from in the diaspora. Why would you take such why would you do such a thing? Because now those brothers and sisters in the diaspora are are having a second thought about this place that they think they are running to, and this place that they are running to is also trying to put people who don't look like us, who are not part of us, who don't share in our vision, into helm of into helm of positions. Then what will the next generation be? It is also going to be infiltrated by this same Western ideology and this same suppression and this same inferiority complex going to be pushed down our throat again. So the same people that we are trying to rescue them will also end up just as our forefathers did. So these people, whoever that is a traitor, in my opinion. But why?
Whoever does that, that is a traitor, and we are condemning it with all the strongest term possible on this earth. We can't watch and see this happening on our continent in the 21st century, in the year 2020. It's unacceptable, and whoever has the power of rebuking it can do it, and we are doing it. But your last thoughts as we conclude this session today, and we perhaps we could meet again next time. But what do you have to say as you conclude to our viewers as far as our liberty and freedom is concerned? Because liberty is not given, you must fight for it, and that's what we have to do.
Yes, thank you. If you should go online and search about this, a Chinaman installed as a chief in Ghana, you see many blogs on this from Ghanaian youth and radio stations and activists and YouTubers and Facebook bloggers and a whole lot of guys who are very much against this issue and have agitated and are agitating in this direction that it is not right. So the African needs to be educated. The Ghanaian needs to be told of the history that they don't know. That these people who were putting into position as leaders, whom we clearly see as misleaders of our time, are
And
trying to,
looters.
and looters and businessmen who are
Yes.
trying to shortchange us and do things that favors them. So it's bestowed on us to do these programs as we are doing now, to be able to teach and tell them the story that no, these people you see them as leaders are misleaders, and they are also going to mislead us and misguide us into the next century, and therefore we need to stop it now
As I
by
conclude,
agitating.
as we conclude, you are coming up with a question. I mentioned it earlier. Perhaps you might bring it in as we conclude. Now, this nation that we have, which I really value, that we respect elders. Should we, as youth, respect these elders even when they are in the wrong? Because what they are doing here is not only affecting this generation of ours, it will affect also negatively the generation to come. If all the African chiefs will be crowning all the foreigners, all the Chinese, we will be a new colony of the Chinese. And
Yes.
I was doing some research to be just briefly, and I realized that USA, America, USA, China, and the whole of Europe combined have the size of Africa, even though it looks so small. And yet China is 1.4 billion,
Yes.
and Africa, which is underpopulated, even though they are trying to brainwash us and telling us that we have so many children, the continent of Africa is underpopulated.
Of
Now,
course.
the question is, these Chinese, they are overpopulated. The size of their land is so small compared to
Yes.
the population in China. And so they
China.
want a place where they can dump
Ship
these their
offload
Chinese.
some. Yes.
Yeah, now, if we are
Offload
not
some.
careful and if we continue respecting these elder people, even when they are misleading us, even when they are putting us in trouble and putting the lives of our children and their future in danger, how should we behave as young people towards these elder people who are doing this to sell us for the second
Oh,
time or the third
yes.
time? I don't know. How do we behave
Yes.
as
The
African
African
youth? Because it's not
youth.
enough just being on social media. We need some action on the ground. There's the youth who are on the continent, the youth in this chiefdom where this chief did this heinous crime, I would say. How do we behave as young people towards this? Should we respect everything they say, or should we find a way of talking to them?
Of course, we need to be polite but blunt.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be polite in the sense that when we disagree, we ought to choose our words carefully. But we need to say the right things that needs to be done. We ought to come. They ought to be told to them right and direct, but it has to be in a polite manner. In a polite
Mm-hmm.
manner, in the sense that most of our cultures, especially, yes, most of our cultures were built in the sense that the elderly does not commit any or do not make any mistakes in all
We
their
assume that they
judgments.
are always wise, right?
Yes. And
Mm.
then now that many of us have seen that it wasn't true, but how do we deal up with it? We ought to be finding the youth and be conscientizing them about why these people, these elders, are not doing the right things. What ought to be done needs to be discussed with the youth themselves to come out with their own suggestions and their own ways that they would wish things go. Because most of the often than not, some of us who have traveled out, they see us in a very different light as well. So dealing
Mhm.
with the youth there, you ought to let them know, but their own way of dealing it must also be a big priority before other suggestions. All those suggestions are about could be brought on board, but then they have been in that system so much and being indoctrinated in the sense that it will take a whole lot of time to take them out of that mentality and that ideology, because they need to be made to know that all these years it has been respect, obedience, blah blah blah. What have you achieved? Nothing. We still
Because
live.
this is more or less the same like the preachers, the Christian so-called religious leaders. Also, they always threaten people. You don't the servants of God must always
Yeah.
be respected, which is true. But they must be respected when they are leading us into the right
Right
direction. And the
direction.
question is, if I was a fool when I was young or when I was growing, does it change
Does it
because
mean
I've just had gray
yes?
hair?
No,
No,
no, no, it
no.
doesn't. It doesn't.
So I think,
Yes.
and I think that the uh, telling somebody the truth or challenging the behavior of people, does that mean that you don't respect them?
No, it doesn't. But they have had that monopoly of being respected for quite too long that it has trickled down, and they have subjects whom they just feed, and therefore they don't see themselves be doing anything for themselves without these leaders.
And
So
at the end
it
of
takes
the day, who is the loser? Who gets hurt? Who is
yes,
who gets affected by those decisions? It's the
Yes,
people,
of course, the
How do
people.
we change that? That's the
Yes,
question.
that
I
is the
want you
right.
to
Yes,
come out
the
clearly so
fundamental.
that we know how do we deal with
Yes,
this once and for all.
that is the fundamental question to ask. How do we change it? Because we want to change and go forward. We cannot
Mm,
continue to sit in that situation. But changing it is upon the youth. How do we get the youth on board? Is to be able, those of us who have traveled, or those who are in position, or those who have this mindset of wanting to get out of these situations, we ought to go and be working hand in hand with the youth. The youth need
because
to
I
be,
agree with you, like we need to respect the elderly, but at the same time, we need to make them know that they can't sell us as they used to do. Because I
of
see
course,
some people disagreeing, oh, they didn't sell, the African didn't sell their people because they had guns on their head. That's why we end up finding ourselves in the Caribbean, in Americas and stuff. But today, really, people are doing this for their own selfish interests, and so we
yes,
can't just sit down and look
no,
at them and respect them without doing something to change the narrative. So we need,
yes,
even though what can be done, uh, perhaps should the politician make it easier, or perhaps have some kind of legislations that stops these people from making some kind of decisions, so that they don't end up doing the same again tomorrow and tomorrow, and we find ourselves in trouble. What
of
is the
course.
real solution we can have
Yes,
is here as to conclude?
that is one way to go, by
Mm,
through the politicians, with
mm,
legislations or whatever, to
mm,
work hand in hand with these chiefs on that area. But also,
mm.
it takes the agitation of the masses for the politicians to know that this is not right, this is not good. The people don't want this anymore. But how do we do it? It takes the youth on the ground to do it. How do we get in touch with the youth to see that this is not right? And therefore, it takes those of us who have been exposed to this knowledge that no, these people aren't doing the right things. These were the same things that this Chinaman and these white people did in back then, that ended us into this situation. How do we do it? It takes both me and you, those of us who have been exposed, to get in touch with the youth on the ground. This Chinaman come with some peanuts for them, do certain small stuff around them, and then they heal them. So we putting ourselves together. Everything is economics. The African man on the land has been made to suffer in a way that whenever anybody brings some peanuts to them, then they fall prey to to them. And therefore, we need to be there, put our acts together, get down, talking, being involved in the community building, put our hands together. Those who have some knowledge of putting some businesses or whatever into their community, put your business into communities down there, thereby employing the youth down there, then becoming also powerful to be able to get youth on board, because it is all about economics. But because this chief who is doing this because he's benefiting. He has some subjects, has some youth whom, when they are benefiting in this, they gather youth on their back, and then they'll be giving them some small stuff that makes them happy. And then, so
Mm.
before you take the youth to your side, you also have to read from afar, and then to be able to get down, put some boots on the ground, let them know that this is not right. How do we get out of our poverty situations? How do we get out of, how, how do we reject what we are being given? But by so doing, we should be able to. So it is such a, we see it, we sit up back, and then we want to just do something, but it is so difficult. And because
It is
the
so
people,
difficult, it's so difficult, and we must join hands, those of us who are in the outside the continent and who have been exposed a little bit, must join our hands together with our youth on the continent. With those remarks, sir, I want to thank you. Thank you so much
yes,
for your time. I know you are a busy person, but thank you for sparing your time and discussing with us and giving us shedding some light on this information happening in Ghana. And we hope that this does not repeat itself anywhere around the continent, and that the chiefs and all other leaders will stop from making us as businesses. Thank you so much, sir, and I appreciate your time today, and I hope to see you in the next session. And I wish you all the best. Good afternoon, and enjoy your evening.
thank you too. Thank you for having me, and have a good evening. And greetings to all your viewers.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was the end of our discussion today. And for those of you who have, perhaps this is your first time on this channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and for welcoming me in your house or in your phone, I don't know. And thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and like and share, and that will be very great. Thank you. If you are watching us on Facebook, I ask you again to share, to like the video and share with your friends. I appreciate so much your support, and see you again at 9. At 9 we'll be having another session, and I hope to see you then. Thank you so much.